In this sequel to the previous Star Wars movie, Episode 4, A New Hope, the opening crawl reveals the next stage in the conflict. Following the destruction of the Death Star, the Rebel Alliance was forced to abandon their base on the Yavin moon. The formidable Imperial Fleet of the Galactic Empire has relentlessly chased the rebels across the galaxy. This has led the rebels to set up a hidden base on the desolate, frozen world of Hoth.The Sith Lord, Darth Vader, deploys robotic probes to locate the base and track down its leader, Luke Skywalker, a key hero of the rebellion. While patrolling near Echo Base, Luke spots what appears to be a meteor crashing down close to him. He radios Han Solo, letting him know he intends to check out the mysterious object. However, before he can reach the site, he is attacked and knocked unconscious by a native, polar bear-like creature known as the Wampa. Meanwhile, back at the base, the smuggler and pilot Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford, announces his plan to leave the rebels to repay his debt to the gangster Jabba the Hutt, much to Princess Leia's dismay. When Han realizes Luke hasn't returned from his patrol and with temperatures plummeting, he postpones his departure and sets out to search for Luke, riding an ostrich-like creature called a tauntaun. Meanwhile, Luke manages to escape from the Wampa's lair, using the Force to summon his nearby lightsaber and injuring the creature before heading out into the freezing wilderness. However, he soon collapses in the extreme cold, where he has a vision of his former mentor, Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, portrayed by Alec Guinness. Obi-Wan's apparition instructs him to seek training from Jedi Master Yoda on the distant planet Dagobah. Han eventually finds Luke and keeps him warm by sheltering him inside his tauntaun's carcass until he can set up a more stable shelter. The next morning, a rebel patrol rescues both of them, and Luke is taken to the medical bay to recover from his injuries from the Wampa attack. In his recovery room, he is visited by Leia, Han, and Chewbacca. Han, with a smile, reminds Luke that he's now saved him twice from life-threatening situations. Later on, ground scans detect an object outside the base perimeter in Zone 12. Han and Chewie go out to investigate and discover an Imperial probe droid. The droid transmits the location of the Rebel base to the Imperial Fleet before firing at Chewie. Han fires a low-energy shot at the droid, but it triggers its self-destruct and explodes. Aboard Darth Vader's massive flagship, Captain Piett picks up the droid's transmission. However, his superior, Fleet Admiral Ozzel, dismisses the message as unimportant. When Vader sees the transmission, he identifies it as the Rebel base and overrules Ozzel, ordering the Imperial Fleet to the Hoth system. When the fleet arrives from hyperspace, Vader is informed by General Veers, his infantry commander, that the rebels have fortified their defenses with infantry trenches and an energy shield strong enough to block an orbital bombardment. Furious with the situation, Vader orders Veers to initiate a ground assault, displeased that Ozzel's blunder has exposed their approach by exiting light speed too close to the planet. Vader expresses his frustration to Captain Piett, promoting him to Admiral, while Ozzel receives Vader's own deadly form of punishment. On the planet's surface, Imperial forces land their ground assault troops, deploying over a dozen four-legged AT-AT walkers and several two-legged AT-ST walkers just outside the Rebel energy shield. Luke leads his squadron of speeders into the battle, but he quickly realizes that their blasters are ineffective against the walkers' heavy armor. Thinking fast, Luke devises a plan for his team to use their towing cables to wrap around the walkers' legs, tripping them to make them more vulnerable. Although a few walkers are destroyed, the Imperial forces eventually overpower the rebels, destroying the generator that powers the energy shield and overtaking the Rebel base. Han Solo, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, and their droid C-3PO manage to escape on the Millennium Falcon. Luke returns to the base after taking down one of the walkers himself, then takes off in his X-Wing fighter with R2-D2 by his side. While in space, Han realizes that the Millennium Falcon's hyperdrive is damaged, preventing them from escaping the Imperial blockade. In the midst of the chaos, they enter a nearby asteroid field around Hoth, pursued by 4 Imperial TIE fighters. Han skillfully pilots the Falcon deeper into the field, where the 4 TIE fighters are destroyed by the asteroid debris. To hide and attempt repairs, Han lands the Falcon inside a crater on a large asteroid. Meanwhile, Luke and R2-D2 make a rough landing on the swampy planet of Dagobah. Frustrated that his X-Wing has sunk into a bog, Luke sets up camp and begins eating his rations. As he reflects on the strange familiarity of his surroundings, he is startled by a small, green creature who speaks in a peculiar way and pesters him for his power lamp while criticizing his food. Claiming to know Yoda's location, the creature leads Luke to his modest home to eat. Growing impatient, Luke insists on meeting Yoda right away. The small creature then speaks with the spirit of Obi-Wan, voicing doubts about Luke's age and lack of patience for Jedi training. It dawns on Luke that this creature is Yoda himself. Yoda warns that Luke carries anger much like his father, Anakin. Obi-Wan reassures Yoda that Luke will learn patience and complete his training. When Luke insists he's not afraid, Yoda gravely responds, "You will be." The Star Destroyer Avenger navigates through the vast asteroid field in search of the Millennium Falcon. A squadron of TIE bombers flies over the large asteroid where the Falcon is concealed, dropping high-powered concussion bombs across its surface to flush it out. The loud blasts wake Leia, who had fallen asleep in the Falcon's cockpit. Inside the asteroid cave, Han Solo and Princess Leia argue as they work on repairs, but the tension eventually leads to a gentle kiss. While resting in the cockpit of the Falcon, Leia is startled by a hideous creature on the ship's windows. Han, Leia, and Chewbacca put on breathing masks and step outside to investigate. Leia notes the unusual feel of the ground, and Han quickly shoots one of the creatures off the ship, identifying them as Monox, parasites feeding on the Falcon's power cables. When Chewbacca attempts to shoot another but misses, the entire cave shakes with a loud rumble. Growing suspicious, Han fires at the ground, causing the cave to shake even more. As they rush back on board and make their escape, they realize that the cave's mouth is actually the jaws of an enormous space slug. On the command bridge of the Avenger, Darth Vader assembles a select group of intergalactic bounty hunters. The most feared among them is Boba Fett, portrayed by Jeremy Bulloch. Vader offers them a substantial reward if they can track down the Millennium Falcon. After moving into an attack position, he flies directly over the Star Destroyer's bridge, hiding the Falcon on the surface of the massive ship and attaching it with the landing claws. Undetected, they wait as Han formulates a way to escape. He reasons that the fleet will jettison its waste before jumping to hyperspace, allowing them to drift away unseen. Checking his navigational log, Han realizes he's been in this region before and recalls a nearby planet called Bespin, where an old smuggling friend might provide them shelter. However, their escape hasn't gone unnoticed. Trailing just behind is the smaller slave Eye, piloted by Fett, who is tracking the Falcon's likely destination. Han's plan works, and he sets course for Cloud City, a gas mining colony on Bespin operated by his friend, Lando Calrissian. Luke experiences a vision of Han and Leia in pain and peril. Driven by a desire to save them, he decides he must go to their aid. However, Yoda and Obi-Wan's spirit caution him about the risks of leaving impulsively, reminding him that he remains vulnerable to the powerful lure of the dark side. Despite their warnings, Luke departs from Dagobah, assuring Yoda that he will return to finish his training. When Han's group arrives at Cloud City, they are greeted by Lando Calrissian. Lando agrees to assist Han with repairs on his ship and invites the group to join him for a meal. A sudden laser blast strikes C-3PO mid-sentence as he babbles in confusion. Chewbacca grows suspicious and goes to investigate, but he arrives too late to witness what happened to C-3PO. As Han's group enters the dining room, they are seized by Darth Vader, who is there with Boba Fett, the bounty hunter who tracked them to Cloud City. Lando explains that he was forced to cooperate with the Empire to keep them from taking control of or possibly destroying the city. While in captivity, Han is tortured as part of a plan to lure Luke to Cloud City. Chewbacca also suffers, tormented in his cell by an unbearable, amplified screeching sound. As Vader waits for Luke to be drawn to his friend's suffering, he tells Lando that the rebels must never be allowed to leave the city. Disgusted by Vader's cruelty toward Han and the others, Lando objects, saying that their agreement never included keeping the rebels permanently or handing Han over to Boba Fett. But when Vader threatens to station a garrison in the city if Lando continues to protest, Lando realizes he is completely powerless. Vader orders a carbon freezing chamber to be ready to freeze Luke, planning to keep him in suspended animation for his journey to the Emperor. To test the process, they decide to freeze Han Solo first. As Han is lowered into the machine, Leia tells him she loves him. Han is frozen in carbonite, alive in a state of hibernation, and handed over to Fett. Fett plans to deliver Han to Jabba the Hutt in exchange for a large reward. Meanwhile, Luke arrives at Cloud City and is drawn toward the carbon freezing chamber. He encounters Vader, and a fierce lightsaber duel begins. While Vader's Imperial troopers are escorting the prisoners, Lando insists there's still a chance to save Han. As they make their way through the city, they find R2-D2 and continue their pursuit of Boba Fett. In the closing scene, the Rebel fleet, now in retreat and badly beaten, gathers at a location beyond the galaxy to plan their next steps. On board a Rebel medical frigate, Luke receives a new artificial hand. Meanwhile, Lando and Chewbacca set off in the Millennium Falcon to search for Han Solo, with Luke intending to join them as soon as he's cleared for medical care. Standing together, Luke and Leia watch the ship disappear, heading back toward the galaxy. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share this video.